Everybody, and welcome to our early comic review show. Review, review show. You can't roll that one word into the
No.
other one. Welcome to our early review show where we're going to be going over some of the biggest and best books that are coming out this week. I'm Andy.
And Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now that my whole intro has been thrown off the rails.
Start over.
But no, this is going to be a really good show. There's some huge books coming out this week. You can see a few of them here we'll be going over, plus all their variants. We're going to be going over some of the incentive covers, all that goodness. But you'll definitely want to head over to infinityflux.net where you can order along with this. You can follow along. You can pre-order upcoming books. You get their variants, everything you pre-order, you get 10% off of at infinityflux.net. So this week, I think, is a very big week. It was really hard to narrow down what books we were going over.
Everything I read was either a number 1 or a number 2.
Yeah, some big swings. I feel like this time of the year, like all the companies are just like pumping it out every week. Not to mention like all the stuff coming out next week.
Next week is huge on my list of stuff that I pre-ordered. It's like this long. Yeah, it's huge.
So, but thankfully, got a really good one this week as well. So I'm actually going to start off with Alan Scott Green Lantern #1. This is our third of the 3, at least now announced, new Golden Age books from DC. I think it's interesting where each of them, they weren't like, it has to take place either, it has to take place in the 40s or it has to take place, like they've kind of bounced around. Like Sandman takes place 100% in the 40s. And then we had Jay Garrick that took place mostly in the present. We saw some in the past.
A little bit from like 1963, which isn't even the Golden Age, and then mostly in the present.
And now we have Alan Scott Green Lantern, which jumps between the two. So this is by Tim Sheridan, and the art is by Cian Tormey. And this is really cool. This is, I thought, to begin with, the art was perfect for this.
I think this may be the best, my favorite thing from Cian Tormey that I've seen so far.
Okay,
I really liked it a lot.
Who was the artist on some of Superboy?
Yeah, the John Kent Superboy stuff.
Yeah. But getting into the story of this, so this jumps between about 1936 and 1941. So you're seeing, it's basically pre him being Green Lantern and post Alan Scott being Green Lantern. So in the pre-Green Lantern, you see him in the military. I'm not sure, is he in the Navy? Because he's on a ship.
Yeah, they're on a ship. I'm not sure which branch it is.
Yeah. But he's got kind of a forbidden relationship with a fellow member that they're hiding because of the time period, all of that. But also that the mission they're on is a really interesting one where there's apparently this, I don't know what to call it, like almost an entity.
Well, they said it was like a crimson flame that's burning underneath the ocean.
You're right.
And they said, can you imagine how much power it takes for a flame to burn underwater? We want that power.
Right.
And that's what their whole deal is.
Yeah,
that's what the project
they
is.
said even along the way, they kind of started to refer to it as like a sentient thing. And then they may realize there may be some sentience to it after all.
Yeah.
But so we've got that story going along. And it ties in with the story that takes place in 1941, where Alan Scott is Green Lantern. You know, they don't get into like this is how he became Green Lantern. That's been told in many different things. But in this time period, this is very early days of the Justice Society of America. And Alan Scott really, I mean, he basically describes himself as like a loner.
Yeah,
he's like,
I work alone.
Yeah,
you know?
he deals like, there's a whole newspaper article about him fighting Solomon Grundy. And J. Edgar Hoover is like, you didn't wait around for the rest of the Justice Society to show up. And he's like, I just took care of it. And he's like, I want you to be seen with them.
Yeah.
Because the Justice Society of America is kind of this whole thing that the U.S. government has built. It's really interesting. But maybe there's some blackmail involved to get Alan Scott maybe to work a little bit better with the Justice Society of America and with the powers that be at the point.
And to be clear, that's the only blackmail that's going on. So J. Edgar Hoover uses, he has pictures of Alan Scott with his boyfriend Johnny from back in 36. and he uses that as leverage to say you are going to work with the JSA even if you don't want to, or
Yeah.
else I got pictures. But that's the only blackmail. There's been other reports of other things, but that's
Yeah.
the only blackmail that's going on in this book is Hoover wants him to work with the JSA.
Yeah, for kind of the image of this whole thing they're
Right.
trying to build. It's fun. You do see a couple more members of the JSA in this,
Uh-huh.
but it's really interesting, especially the Green Lantern. Like when he's Green Lantern, kind of uh, the stuff that goes on where it looks like maybe someone else may be masquerading as a Green Lantern or some kind of
Yeah.
thing that people think was him. I
Yeah.
won't get into too much detail about it,
Well, we
but
don't know too
yeah,
much
we
either. Yeah, we don't really know.
yeah, but it seems like there may be something that's going on that they're attributing to him
Yeah.
that he doesn't quite know what's going on, but it may be related to what happened back in 36 and this red flame and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's definitely questions in this that we're going to have to read the second, possibly third issue to really figure out what's going on. But this is just setting up everything.
Yeah, I think the stuff in the past is really cool.
Mhm.
There's a lot of tension with the when they finally encounter this thing under the water.
Yeah.
That maybe it's a little bit more than they bargained for. And they have to do some pretty cool things to help the ship and all of that. Just a really fun first issue. It's got a little bit of everything. It's
Yeah.
got action. It's got kind of the more character development moments. Really cool, and I love this kind of returning to the golden age through a like, let's take it more serious. It's not as campy
Right.
lens. It's like Jay Garrickson here, and the way that he refers to Alan Scott is just as Lantern. Like they haven't built up their
Yeah,
friendship
they're not
yet.
quite friends yet. Yeah.
It's a little bit like they work together, but they don't really have like any like mutual feelings
Yeah.
about we're not friends yet or anything, but we know eventually it gets to that place where they're a very like tight unit and stuff. So very cool. I believe this is a 6-issue miniseries.
I think so. Yeah.
So highly recommended. Highly recommend all of the new Golden Age stuff.
Very
It
much
is
so.
all great. Sandman, Jay Garrick, and Alan Scott, all great.
They were
I
all
hope we
good.
get more. But I hope these also lead to maybe. I mean, I don't think they're going to do a new Justice Society of America #1, but I would like to see all these kind of feed into something.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me a Wildcat. Give me a Hawkman book. Give me a
especially
Atom
that, like the
Smasher.
Golden Age Hawkman, where he had
Yeah.
like just the mask
Yeah.
and stuff, and there's so many cool Golden Age characters they can work with. We know that the Golden Age Red Lantern is going to play a part in this at some point. We may see some hints towards that, but we don't even really know.
Nah, not yet.
This is definitely a setup issue. A lot of balls are tossed in the air, and the next one we're going to see like where they're shooting off to, because there's a lot of questions in this one. But I thought it was really, really good. I'm very excited for all of these books. And we've got some really cool variants for this. So we have a Nick Robles variant. Very cool. Ring on the left hand, which is the Alan Scott way, as opposed to because that was when his creation. They're like, how do we make him different? I just put the ring on the other hand.
Well, their rings look different too. His and like Hal Jordan.
So I feel like they've streamlined it a little bit, but the old version was like you have like a literal like lantern sticking off of your finger.
Right,
It's bulky and weird. We also have this John K. Snyder the third variant, which is really cool. We don't see Solomon Grundy, but we hear about him.
Yeah.
Which is cool because he was a classic Alan Scott villain. And we also have this really nice foil variant of the A cover.
I like that one.
Yeah. Especially with this really like artsy, like Art Deco look to it. It works really well with the foil.
Virgin foil cover that's not an incentive. Those are really fun.
Yeah. Really fun on the wallet too.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
It's bad.
All right, so I'm going to start with Captain Marvel #1. This is the first issue of Captain Marvel's new run, written by Alyssa Wong. The art is by Jan Bazaldua, and this one was really fun. And the first thing that jumped out at me is the art. The art in this is really, really great. I like the art quite a bit. So, but when you open the book, like it starts right in the action. There's a building falling, and Carol catches it so that it doesn't land on anybody. And it's cool to see like Captain Marvel like really like using that strength, like she's holding up a building, right?
I feel like we don't see her too often like on Earth looking like a superhero. Usually she's in space with other very powerful beings.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. So she's fighting this new villain that we meet in this issue called the Omen. And I guess the Omen has this weird ability to absorb Carol's energy that she like blasts from her hands. You know, she can absorb that. She gets her like in a bear hug and is able to sort of absorb her energy that way. And I guess she can create portals to the negative zone because and this is the beginning. She gets her in like this bear hug. This portal opens behind her, and then they just sort of both like disappear into it, right? So that happens, and then a little bit after that, we also meet another new character, I guess what's going to be like a new supporting character in the book. Her name is Yuna Yang, and she's a thief who is working for somebody. We don't know who yet, but she is out to steal the Negabands, and she is doing this by breaking into Genisvel's apartment. Genisvel is the original Marvel's son, and we haven't seen him in a long time. Like he's in the current. Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy.
But that takes place in the past.
But that's like in the 90s era Genisvel where he had the ponytail. This is like Blueface Genisvel.
Yeah, I don't know the last time we saw that version of him.
I didn't even know he was still around. But he starts fighting the Omen because the Omen is after the Negabands just like Yuna Yang is. So the Negabands are, at least in this first story, they seem like they're going to figure in prominently. But while Genisvel is fighting the Omen, I'll just say that the Negabands come off because Genisvel has them on, but let's just say they come off something happens and they come off. So Yuna Yang is actually able to get those. And so then the Omen turns her attention to Yuna Yang because now she has the Negabands, and the Omen knocks Yuna Yang out of a window. She's like, well, I'm about to die. The only thing I can think of doing is to bang these together. And when she does, she swaps places with Captain Marvel, who was in the negative zone. So now Captain Marvel is back on Earth fighting the Omen, and Yuna Yang is in the negative zone. So one, we see a lot of place swapping in the upcoming The Marvels movie coming out in a couple of weeks. But two, the first thing I thought of was that's very reminiscent of how Rick Jones used to swap places with the original Captain Marvel back in the 70s. When he would bang together, they would swap places and then unswap places. So now this has that feeling of Carol is now tied to this other mortal person who bangs the things together and they swap places. So I don't know why. Because Carol doesn't have the Negabands on her, but I don't know why banging them together causes Carol to come out of the negative zone. So I guess we're going to have to read to find out exactly why these two are linked. They also do the old Rick Jones, Captain Marvel thing where they could when Rick Jones was on Earth, he could still hear Captain Marvel's voice and vice versa. So now they had that mind link as well. So I kind of like that old school feel because I don't even know the last time we saw Rick Jones. Of course, the original Marvel has been long dead since the 80s.
Say, do we know the last time we even saw the Negabands?
Well, there's the Negabands and then there's the Quantum Bands which are two separate things. So I don't know when the last time we saw the Negabands are. I guess maybe Genisvel had them.
Yeah.
Whenever he was around. Yeah, I don't know. It's bringing
a lot of older concepts to the
forefront. Absolutely, which I find interesting. So so just a really cool start, really action-packed start to a new Captain Marvel series, which is what I was looking for. So and like I said, the artwork is really good too. So all around a pretty solid beginning for Captain Marvel. So we got our A cover right there, and we have some cool variants for this too. This is the Jen Bartel variant, and her new suit looks really cool too. Like I like it a lot. So Jen Bartel there. We have a new Champions variant, and again, disclaimer: this character is not in the book. This is just an imagining of what it would look like if Carol had a kid sidekick. I really like this one. This is the Joshua Swaby cover. She does not have a glowing sword in this either, so just in case you're wondering.
A lot of characters are really liking like Miles and her all have flaming swords. And it's like, I guess it just looks cool.
Yeah, Nightcrawler has one.
Yeah.
So this is the John Tyler Christopher negative space variant. Her new suit on full display there. One that I really like, this David Nakayama foil variant. We were talking about foil variant just a minute ago. So that one looks really nice. And then we have this 1 in 25 Yagawa variant that we're selling for $25.
Very cool. I feel like that's a lot set up in that one.
Yeah.
Where there's going to be a lot of payoff later.
Right.
All these different elements. We may see Rick Jones come back into it. I mean,
that would be cool.
If they want to figure out how do these things work, well, there's people who maybe have been there before. Okay, next up, I've got a really big one that I feel like I mean, I know personally I had a lot of questions about kind of what is this? This is Universal Monsters Dracula, issue one. This is by James Tynion and Martin Simmons, your team from Department of Truth. There's even a nice write up in the back of this by James Tynion who talks about, we were finishing up on a story arc of Department of Truth, and we were talking about we want to kind of stretch our legs and do something different,
Absolutely.
and that's when Image kind of came to them and said, what do you feel about the Universal monsters?" And it sounds like James Tynion pretty much could choose any of them he wanted to do. And he said, "I don't even remember saying I want to do Dracula." He just immediately started picturing Martin Simmons versions of these characters and stuff. So it sounded like it was very organic, which was really cool. The thing he talks about in this, which I think is really important, is we've seen a lot of Dracula books, a lot of vampire books, all of that, that's used the character in different ways. Marvel's got Dracula,
Oh
DC's
yeah,
got Dracula. He's public domain,
sure.
but this is
Pacific,
specifically,
specifically,
uh,
he's in the ocean.
yeah, he is in the ocean. The Universal Monsters version of him. This is the Bela Lugosi Dracula. This is those versions of the characters. Now, does it always look like those? Well, you have Martin Simmons who has a very unique
Hmm.
style, very interpretive. So it's cool to like imagine the movie versions and everything, but it doesn't look like they just took stills from the
Yeah.
movie and put them in there. I thought Martin Simmons' art on this worked really well. It definitely gave a very gothic, ethereal vibe to it. So in this, this picks up, I would say, in the second half of the movie, where Dracula has already come to America
Okay.
on the Demeter, and is already kind of set up shop in Carfax Abbey, and we're following mostly in this. We're following um, Renfield, who of course was Dracula's first guest, who got turned into not a vampire, but one of Dracula's minions. And the way Martin Simmons does his face in this, it almost looks like his face is constantly glowing. You can't see a nose. It's a very
Oh.
unsettling look. But he eats flies and spiders that land on his windowsill. And he talks about, these are little lives. They give me a little bit of power.
Huh.
The bigger lives are saved for the master and stuff. And we also follow Dr. Seward, who is the doctor in charge of investigating what's going on with Renfield. So you've got a lot of really interesting kind of interview moments where the two are talking, and you can tell Seward doesn't really believe the stuff he's saying. He's more trying to diagnose what's wrong with this person. Uh, but there's also Dr. Seward's daughter is Lucy, or Mina. Can't remember if it's Mina or
I
Lucy.
don't know.
But one of those, my Dracula lore is getting all over the place. Notices like some weird goings on next door at Carfax Abbey, and there's a strange man there. So we're seeing a lot of the elements of Dracula uh, kind of pop up here and there, but we're getting to a more like ground level. We're hearing discussions about uh, people are really interested in this Renfield that's come up, and look how odd he is and the stuff he does, and do you believe the things he's saying? And we're seeing that Jonathan Harker's there, and he's really interested in this case. And then I would say you see, like in this, there is almost no Dracula, and the bits you do see are um, very almost dreamlike. It may be in people's minds, maybe it's not, but then you'll turn the page and see a big thing of Dracula doing
Hmm.
something. But you don't know, is it happening in that moment, or is these kind of visions people are getting? It's very interesting. I believe this is just a mini series. They're going to be doing more of the Universal Monsters characters. But if you of course, the Universal Monsters Dracula, this does have a very like gothic horror feel, which I think is really cool and is definitely done very well here. Highly recommend it, especially even for Martin Simmons' art. The interpretation of the characters in this is really interesting. There's a lot of good back matter too of his sketchbook sketches of Dracula and some of the character. Plus that little bit in the end by Tyne where he explains a lot of his take on Dracula is really cool. So Highly recommended. Universal Monsters Dracula #1. I believe this is only like a 6-issue miniseries. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
long at
yeah.
all. And then we also have this awesome Middleton variant where you
That's the one.
definitely get a Bela Lugosi vibe
Yeah,
from
that's the one I
him.
pre-ordered. That looks so good, so
Yeah.
classic.
Very cool. I'm very excited to see. I want to see the creative teams on all of these.
Right.
Clearly, they've got some big names working on it. Who's doing Frankenstein's monster? Who's
Yeah.
doing the Mummy? Who's doing Creature from the Black
Because
Lagoon?
we do know that more Universal Monsters books are coming, but we
Yeah,
don't know details, dates, creative teams. We don't
yeah.
know any of that stuff.
I want Daniel Warren Johnson
Yeah.
doing
Everything.
on Frankenstein,
Frankenstein's
just
monster.
like
Yeah. Uh huh.
busting through walls
Yeah.
and doing power bombs on people.
Oh, that's great. Um, so next up for me is Marvel Zombies, Black, White, and Blood #1. And you guys know the drill by now with these Black, White, and Blood books, but we have never had one that's Marvel Zombies before. I don't think, right? Has there been a Marvel
Mm-mm.
Zombies? So yeah, this is just another anthology series. This one has 3 different self-contained stories in them. But this series is going to feature zombies, and everything's in black and white except for all the red blood, and
Oh,
with zombies around, there's lots and lots of blood. So the first story is called Undefeated. This is written by Garth Ennis, and the art is by Rachel Stott. Um, and this one features Daredevil, and Daredevil is already a zombie, and he's been captured by humans and made to fight in some kind of underground fight club. Which is, they keep him almost literally down in a hole, and they bring him out with like a pincer around the neck, put him in this cage, make him fight other zombies, and then they put him back in his hole. Well, one night he gets a visit from a surprise non-zombified character. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but that character offers him a way to make the whole thing end.
Hmm.
And it gives him a couple different options. This character does, and Daredevil does pick one. And it was just really cool to see that character pop up. And again, I'm not going to tell you who. The next one's called Hope. This from Alex Segura and Javi Fernandez. This one features Spider-Man, and this one was longer than the other two. This is in the middle, so I feel like this is maybe like your main story of the book,
Mhm.
I guess. But this one, it starts off with the Daily Bugle having already been overrun with zombies, and the main, like the top floor where Jonah's office is and Peter always is, and Betty Brant, like it's almost like Dawn of the Dead or something, where it's
Mhm.
just full of zombies, and Spider-Man's there trying to hold off this horde of zombies from the last few survivors, Jonah being one of them. And during, he's fighting some zombies, and during that fight, he sees a surprise character, not the same surprise character, but another surprise character who has been turned into a zombie, and he's very upset about this. So that was really cool too, and had a really creepy ending. And then the last one's called Deliverance, written by Ashley Allen, and the art is by Justin Mason. This one features Moon Knight, and it features Moon Knight versus a zombified Iron Man. And Khonshu was there, and maybe there's another Egyptian god there too, who is kind of like on Iron Man's side. And it's almost like they're pitting their fighters
Yeah.
against each other, that kind of thing. And that one also has a really interesting ending. So just a really solid book. Like I said, these are just their own little self-contained stories that don't really bridge out or connect to anything else. They're just its own single thing. But yeah, all in black and white except for all the bloody stuff, which is all red. So very, very cool. These books are just fun because you can
Yeah.
just read them, absorb these stories. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just have fun with them. So we have our nice A cover right there, and we got a few variants. We got this Lionel Francis Yu Hulk versus Wolverine. These guys are not in the book, but that would be a cool matchup to see.
Once
This
again.
right. This is our Baron's variant, which also has Hulk and Wolverine, even
Yep.
though they aren't in the book. And then we have this 1 in 25 Albuquerque variant. We're selling for $25 with your zombified Daredevil there. And then this 1 in 10 Magno homage variant to Secret Wars #8 that we're selling for $10. That looks really, really cool. That is Secret Wars 8, right?
No,
No?
that's
It made me think
Civil War, maybe?
maybe. I'm not sure. Let us know in the comments what you think that is. I thought it was Secret Wars 8 because of how he's sort of standing in the middle with characters around him. But
Usually they're like running at each other in the
yeah, that's
background.
true. Yeah, maybe it's like a Venom cover. I'm not
Or
sure.
Avengers versus X-Men.
I don't know. Now it's gonna drive me bonkers. Let us know in the comments what you think that's an homage cover to. But yeah, very, very cool.
Are these the like the previous Marvel zombies where they can talk and they're
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because okay, I'm glad you feel so confident about that. Well, I know in like the original like Kirkman run and stuff, the zombies could talk and they were kind of snarky and
Right. They don't have that level of snark, but yeah, they like the Daredevil one. I get the he talks, he says words,
okay,
but not really in that same
not
faction.
just brains
Right.
or
Right. Yeah.
okay. Well, before we go any further, did want to remind you about our lovely website, infinityflux.net, where you can go on there right now. You can order these books that we're talking about. You can order their variants even, and you can become a subscriber, pre-order your books, have them shipped right to your house. Or if you are local, you can stop by the store and pick them up. Any of those options is totally fine. And everything you pre-order, you get 10% off of, including using that code I love Flux at checkout and get 10% off your first order. If you've never ordered with us before, why not use that code? Get 10% off. Also, pre-order book, get another 10% off. We're not going to stop you, and
Yep.
you get some great deals over there at infinityflux.net. So moving on into more awesome books that came out this week, I'm going to go to one of the ones I've been really excited about. This is Giant Robot Hellboy #1. I think this is maybe only a 2-issue miniseries,
Okay.
at most 3.
I thought I saw three,
It might be
but it's
3.
definitely not like six or
No,
whatever. Yeah,
this
it's
is
a
a
short
really
one.
short
Mhm.
one, like they tend to do. I mean, sometimes Hellboy they do 2-issue stories.
Yeah.
You know, the rules are out the window with
Yeah.
them.
Well, they do a lot of one shots too.
A
So
lot
yeah,
of
you
one
just never
shots.
can tell with
Yeah.
Hellboy.
This is really fun. So this is based off of a Mike Mignola sketch he did during quarantine. He did a bunch of sketches for charity of just various things. Some were just people with vegetables for heads, and some were giant robot Hellboys. He did a really cool giant robot Batman too in that,
Oh.
but we're not gonna get that. But Giant Robot Hellboy, really cool sketch. It got a lot of people talking and sharing it on social media and everything. So they decided to turn it into this book. So this is written by Mike Mignola, and the art is by Duncan Fegredo, who did a ton of work on like BPRD and did a lot of some of the latter Hellboy stuff. But this is a really big team on this to have Mike Mignola back as sole writer of it instead of co-writing it. So it feels like some really good Hellboy stuff. And it's a really funny idea. So Hellboy's in London. What I love about Hellboy, you don't have to know why he's where doing whatever. He's just bumming around. He'll just wind up in cities at
Yeah.
different times.
Hanging out.
And that's when he gets hit by a dart and gets knocked out. And you see these people, these kind of like robot people and these agents take him, hook him up to a machine that kind of puts his head in kind of like a brain scrambler looking
Mhm.
thing. He's kind of slack jawed, like it's really messing with him. And when Hellboy wakes up, he's in the body of this giant robot version of himself.
I thought maybe he was like, so he's not like piloting
He's
it
not
like
like
a
a
Gundam or
Gundam.
anything.
No,
Oh, okay.
he's at a separate location, but
Okay.
when he sees what he is. Uh,
Okay.
so we don't quite know why they're doing this to him.
Oh, it's right there. 1 of 3. Sorry, I just
Oh,
noticed that.
okay.
It's right there
Well,
on the cover.
you don't read covers. That's
Ain't got no
crazy.
time for that.
I just immediately tear into
Right.
the bus. But it's really interesting because it seems like one of those things where like he can feel the impacts and that
Mm.
kind of thing. But we don't quite know why he's there. He may be there because to be a distraction because there is another person who is on this island that this giant robot's on trying to investigate something else. So it's interesting. You got this little story going on, and then uh, there is a big fight between Hellboy, giant mech Hellboy, and a giant like lizard thing, which is really fun. Also, it's really funny because they're like the people back in the facility with Hellboy like hooked up is like, oh no, he's really bad at piloting this thing, and you just see Hellboy just like flipping over, like falling backwards, and he doesn't know how to control his tail, and it's like, oh, we never considered he might not actually know how to pilot one of these
Oops.
things. It could kind of this issue could kind of end with him being like, well, I think this is a big mistake. So it was really fun. You don't really need to know anything about Hellboy lore other than just kind of him, what he looks like,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. That's always the fun of Hellboy stories. And I just thought this was a great issue. Just really, really fun. I love Hellboy's a very versatile character that can do a lot of different genres. This is definitely a kaiju mech style story. But there is our A cover there. Really great. And of course, we've got this fantastic Mike Mignola variant
That's
as
great.
well. And this is really indicative of the story. You've got the brain there where he's kind of hooked up, he's kind of passed out, the
Yeah.
giant robot, all of that. Really fun.
Very nice. All right, next up for me is Edenwood #1. This is a new series from Image Comics, written and drawn by Tony Daniel. So this one is set. Okay, so and I want to explain because I took me a minute to wrap my head around this. This one is set in the United States. Like I think it's at the very beginning. They're like in Grand Rapids, or they're in Wisconsin somewhere. I think. So it's in the U.S., but there is a large area of land in the middle that is called Edenwood, and I want to say that like it was created by witches, and then there's demons who have their own set like piece of land, and it kind of looks like a cross between like a fantasy setting, like with witches and demons and swords and sorcery, but also like a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting because there's also people that come through in like these Mad Max looking vehicles with like guns and stuff like that. So it looks like a mix between the two. And I don't know if they do make mention about how time moves differently in Edenwood. And I don't know if that means if it's almost like if you thought about it like a bubble and maybe everything outside of this in the country is normal. I'm not 100% sure yet. Like it's still doing some world building here. So, we'll have to read more to figure out for sure. But there's a girl named Adelaide, and she runs into the woods to look for her dog. And her boyfriend named Rion, or maybe it's Ryan, it's Rion. It's spelled like a lion, but with an R. But I thought Rion. He chases after her, but he can't find her in the woods. But he does run up on a large battle, I guess, between these witches and these demons. And he's attacked by a demon himself, but he's saved by this demon slayer named Bastille. And he tells Rion that he's like, you can either join me or you can join the battle over there fighting demons, and you have another option. Like that's all you got. That's all you can do. So Rion goes off with Bastille. And there is a 3-year time jump shortly after that, and we do see where Rion ended up, and we see where some of his friends ended up too, because we see some of his friends there at the beginning of the book. And I won't tell you where they end up or what they're doing or that kind of thing, because I don't want to spoil too much. But this was a very interesting book because, again, it's not quite all the way fantasy. It's not quite all the way post-apocalyptic, Mad Max style. It's a weird mixture of the two of them. There's demons and there's witches. There is definitely more to learn about this world, who the different factions are. There's a lot more to learn about demons and witches because they give us a couple of like names of types of demons. Like there's a demon that can sort of like uh, take the appearance of somebody, and but then they like, oh, I'm a demon, I'm gonna kill you, that kind of thing.
They
And
do that every time.
yeah, and those are types of demons that have names. So there's a lot of new concepts to absorb in this book, but very interesting, right? And the art by Tony Daniel is very very cool too. So just a really nice mix of fantasy and sci-fi, maybe. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, we've got our A cover right there. We got a couple variants too. This is the Asrar variant. There's a couple other of our characters. I'm actually not sure if we've met them yet in this book, so that we might not have met them yet. We also have this Melina variant. I don't know if we met her either. So maybe we're getting previews of characters to meet later. We have this 1 in 10 Tony Daniel sketch variant. I like that one quite a bit. And then we have a 1 in 25 Ryan Stegman variant. And this will give you this. We're selling this for $15. And that gives you a nice look at. He's on a motorcycle, right? So this isn't all like high fantasy stuff. Like it's almost like a little bit of Spawn in there, maybe.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, some cool concepts in this one. Definitely need to read more than just the first issue to really wrap your brain around the whole thing.
Would have been good to be like a double-sized first
Yeah,
issue.
something like that.
Yeah.
Because it ended pretty quick, and I was like, wait a minute, what happened? And I don't mean that bad. It's just there's a lot to
Yeah,
absorb. Is all.
especially when it's a whole new world
Yeah,
with new
and
rules and
yeah,
everything to establish. It's hard to fit all that in one issue.
right.
Okay, next up for me, I've got Amazing Spider-Man. This is Amazing Spider-Man number, I believe, 36. So this was a really fun issue. We are in a little in-between section before the gang war
Mhm.
stuff starts, but the previous, like, you know, Spider-Man's first hunt or whatever that story arc is called. This is do you remember it's like 2 or 3 issues?
Which one?
This middle story that like
I believe 36, 37, maybe just two, because I think 38 is the start.
yeah.
I think 39 is the start of Gang War. So maybe three
But it's
issues.
like
Yeah.
a little. It sounds bad to say it's a filler, because filler usually denotes like it doesn't matter.
Right.
But this is actually a really fun one. I mean, how can it be a filler when you bring Ed McGuinness in to do
That's
art?
right.
Like you bring him in to do big stuff.
Hmm.
So this is fun though. We pick back up with a Rec Rap, who it took me way too long to realize was Parker backwards. Um, who is the would you say it's a demon?
Yeah, I think
He's kind of a
so.
demon from Limbo who was a kind of a an oddball in that world where he wanted to be a hero,
Yeah.
and he became this like kind of hulking Spider-Man like character, and he called himself Wreck Rap, and his dialogue and stuff is very goofy and stuff. He's a fun character. He's very over the top and everything. But I feel like the best part about that character is that when you get him with Spider-Man, who just can't stand him,
Right.
he just constantly like, stop doing that. Like you're
Yeah.
embarrassing me. That's all really fun. So we pick up with Wreck Rap, who is investigating something. He thinks he's being real sneaky in a hat and a trench coat and telling people that he's in disguise.
That's like when Ben Grimm goes out in a trench coat and a hat, but he's still like this big guy.
Yeah.
You can see the orange rocks, or when the Ninja Turtles do it or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
And then even the person that he knocks on their front door is like, the Rec Rab's like, I'm not Spider-Man. The guy's like, I didn't think you were. I think you're that guy who's been going around looking like Spider-Man and
Yeah.
destroying half the town or whatever. It's really funny. But Rec Rap is looking for something. He thinks he's found at the house where it's in the attic. And we don't quite know what this thing he's looking for is. But he's there to investigate. But it doesn't last long before he is attacked by the oh, what's his name? It's one of the members of the his version of the Sinister Six.
Oh yeah.
What did I call it? He's a goblin. He's
Oh, the Gray Goblin or the Grave Goblin.
Grave Goblin. That's
Yeah.
what I couldn't remember. He starts fighting Grave Goblin, who apparently is trying to stop him from finding whatever this is. So we've seen before. Rec Rap has his own Sinister Six called the Insidious Six, and they're kind of weird versions. Like the Doc Ock version kind of looks like a beholder from D&D with multiple eyes and a big face. Uh, but this has all been causing a lot of problems because Luke Cage, who is the mayor of New York, goes to. Is he mayor yet, or is he still running for mayor?
He's mayor.
He
Yeah,
is
he's
mayor.
been mayor. Yeah.
Okay, so he goes to Madeline Pryor because they have that Limbo Tower
Yeah.
now in New York to basically be like, I know this guy and all these like Spider-Man knockoff villains are from your place. I really need you to take care of them
Right.
because they're your problem.
Yeah. Clean up your mess.
Yeah. And Alan Pryor's like, hey, I'm already taking care of it. Like, don't worry about it. It'll all be smoothed over. Luke Cage brings Spider-Man because he's like, I think you know what she's talking about with all this. And Spider-Man's like, I don't know. I'm just here. And I don't think she really likes me at this point. So it's really interesting to see, like, it's even Spider-Man trying to stop this guy who's clearly trying to be a hero. Like Wreck Rab wants to be a hero, but causes a lot of destruction in that way. But Madeline Pryor has something that she calls the Repossessor. And you're gonna have to read to find out who that is, but it's a very creepy character that's kind of her bounty hunter type character from Limbo that is on the cover, I believe, of the next issue.
Okay.
If you look ahead, you'll see that. This was a fun issue. There's a lot of action in it, which is great for McGinnis to draw. There's a lot of battles. The weird stuff Wreck Rap and Spider-Man get up to in this, where Spider-Man does have to very hesitantly side with Wreck Rap on something that he's very unhappy about. Just a fun issue of Spider-Man. So if you're waiting for Gang War, I think you could even jump on right here and have a fun ride leading up to it. So this is our A cover for that. We also have this John Romita Jr. variant. With this does not happen in there.
Right.
Green
Goblin's
Goblin does
not in
not
there.
appear in this issue. And we have this new Champions variant with kind of what if Black Cat had a sidekick. And we have this really nice 1 in 25 Arthur Adams variant that we are selling for $40 with Black Cat.
That was nice.
With the game and everything, I'm just all in on Spider-Man stuff right
Oh,
now.
oh, dude, the game. Yeah, I just want to go home and play the game. All right, so next up is Gone #1. So this is the one of the very first books from Distillery. the new company from some of the founders of Comixology, Scott Snyder, Jock, a whole bunch of guys. So this book we got a preview of in the Devil's Cut one shot, which was the actual first book from Distillery that showed us previews of a bunch of stories. So this was the story. If you read that book, this is the story where it had the girl named Abby who snuck onto the big starship so that she could steal food, and it nearly took off with her on board, but she managed to get off of the ship right before it took off. So that same kind of thing happens in this. She sneaks on board a starship to get food, a really really big one. They make a point to say this one is huge. This one has all the supplies we could want for a
It's kind of a
good while.
luxury one, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. And so she sneaks onto that to get the food, but something happens and she does not get off in time before it takes off into space. So she's basically a unwilling stowaway at that point. She hides in the vents there for 8 weeks.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and she befriends a chef on the ship who gives her food, and he keeps her, he keeps sort of like helps her stay quiet and everything. But there are some other stowaways on the ship too, and they're more like resistance fighters. So like
Mhm.
there's this maybe kind of rebellion, and it seems like it may be some kind of class war thing because where Abby lives, like it's very poor people are needing food and that kind of stuff, and then on this big starship, it's full of all these well-to-do people and all this food and just all kinds of stuff. So you have these resistance fighters who also have stowed away on the ship, and they have their own plan to take the bridge of the ship. And towards the end of the book, they start to put their plan into motion. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil anything, but they start to, all right, we have our idea, let's go do this now, the kind of thing. And Abby sort of gets caught up in the middle because, again, she was just trying to get food. She's just there, she doesn't even want to be there. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do to get back home. So it just really interesting story, and it was fun to see in the previous story in the other book. She got off just in time, and this one
What
she
she
didn't.
planned on
Yeah,
doing.
right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just a good strong start from Distillery. A nice new book. Is this the first? No, we had what was the other one we had just recently? There was another one from shoot, I don't remember what it was. I
Another one of the distillery books.
Yeah. I thought it was I don't think this is the first one. I can't remember, but it seems like we had another distillery book too. But they're off to a really strong start. So I like this one quite a bit. I really want to see based on they showed us the cover of the second issue at the back of this, and that makes me really want to read it. It's
Mm.
really kind of interesting. So a good first start. We have our A cover right there. We got a few variants as well. We have this Jock cover as well. That one's nice and colorful. We have this Peach Momoko variant. That's Abby right there. And then we have this 1 in 10 Joel Jones variant, which we don't have a price on this one actually. So I'm not sure how much we're selling that for, but that one's really cool. That's Abby. She's sort of found a place in the vents where she can sort of like curl up, and she said that she stays warm enough and that kind of thing. And that's
Mm.
her and her makeshift home.
Very cool. Okay, next up, I've got Void Rivals issue number 5. So we've got one more issue in this first story arc. And I'm telling you, I'm not sure where this is going, but it's really cool. I loved issue 5. We've got Derek and Salila, who are both in prison because uh, Salila tried to bring back Derek as a, like, look, I got one of the bad guys from the or warring people, and they're like, but did he see your face? And she's like,
Uh-oh.
well, maybe. And they're like, nope, sorry, you're also going to jail too. So we pick it up where they're both in jail. We get a lot of really good dialogue about, why did she do this and what's going to happen to them, which is basically they're going to get killed for what they did. But she's like, but it's going to be worse for you because these are my people, but they don't have any problem, taking you out. So you'll probably be first. So he actually gets escorted away, and in come a new group of characters led by a character called Mistress Vil. And this seems to be kind of a uh, religious group that kind of work on the whim of this higher being that they talk about. But maybe they're actually there to help Salila. You'll have to read it to find out what the plan is. But also, maybe someone is going to be helping Derek. but from the last place you expect. So, some really fun stuff going on here. Plus, of course, this is tied in with the Energon universe. So,
Hmm.
there is about 2 or 3 pages of some pretty big. It's not really a spoiler to say it's Transformers related. That's what all of this has been
Yeah.
so far. But for people who have really enjoyed a lot of the cameos and stuff so far, you're going to continue to like it because there's a pretty big one that you'll recognize that pops up in here. So very, very fun issue of Void Rivals. We got some variants for this. We've got this Ruin variant. We've got this 1 in 10 Manahini variant. It's kind of cool to see what they look like with their masks off in a
Yeah.
different art style. We're selling that one for $10. And then we have this 1 in 25 Darbo variant that we're selling for $20. And I think that's Mistress Vril on the center there. They have hoods on when they come in, so, but I think that's kind of how their heads are shaped. So very cool. We're selling that one for $20.
Yeah, I'm loving Void Rivals. It's awesome. I mean, it's cool to be tied into the Transformers and GI Joe and all that stuff, but its own story is really good
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so next I'm gonna flip my list, flip flop my list, and instead I was gonna do Amazon's Attack next, but I'm gonna do Wonder Woman #2 first because these two books right here go hand in hand with each other. Like the events of Amazon's Attack, which one, um, are directly influenced from what's going on in Wonder Woman. So I'm gonna talk about Wonder Woman first, and this one, if you've seen some of the preview pages, this one is essentially just Wonder Woman versus the U.S. military. That's literally
Yeah.
it. And what's interesting is, oh well, actually that's not it because we also get the story is flipped back and forth between Wonder Woman fighting the military and Diana when she was younger in this big gladiatorial battle against another Amazon. And again, she's younger, so she doesn't have quite all the battle experience and everything like that. And it just kind of like compare and contrast like what she's dealing with and her uh, how stern she's being with the military versus how stern and confident she was being when she was fighting that other Amazon when she was younger. It's funny though because at the beginning the military sends like she's standing in the middle of a field and they send Steve Trevor up to talk to her. And he's like, well, they know we have a relationship. They're hoping I can talk you out of this and into either surrendering or leaving or that kind of thing, but it doesn't work. Um, so yeah, we flip back and forth between and literally like the parts with Wonder Woman present day, it's just her versus the military. That's what the whole book is. And then also we see her versus an Amazonian warrior who was wearing a helmet. So we can't quite see who it is, but we do see who it is. She takes her helmet off at the end, and it's interesting as to who
Oh
it is. I
god.
won't say who it is, but it's very interesting, especially given what happened in the last issue. So really cool there. But also, I wanted to talk about this first too because this has a backup story in it that PSA, if you're going to get both of these, read Wonder Woman #2 first because something happens in the backup story that then leads into Amazon's attacks. I mean, you won't like I read them out of order, and you won't be too confused. But I recommend reading this for Wonder Woman 2 first. In the backup story, we see a woman in Canada who becomes possessed by something. We don't know what. Her eyes just suddenly turn yellow, and she gets some paint or gasoline or something, and she puts a W on her chest, kind of like Wonder Woman's costume,
Mhm.
right? And then she blows up the gas station, and like that was out of nowhere. And then one of the Amazons in the city where Yara Flor lives, he has a vision of the death and destruction of all Amazons unless, and this voice starts talking to her, and it says, unless you bring together the Doubting Queen, the Shadow Blade, and the Lightning Heart, and the Lightning Hearted. Unless those three are united, then all Amazons are going to be wiped out. I have no idea what that means, but I think that's what this is going to be about.
Yeah.
So, lots of questions in the backup story, but that's what this mini series is going to do. So, just very interesting. Like, I'm just loving this new like story they're telling with Wonder Woman and all the Amazons. It's really cool. So yeah, just another solid book of Wonder Woman. So we got our A cover right there, and then we have a bunch of variants. This is our Julian Totino Tedesco variant, very classic Wonder Woman there, and our very fun Trick or Treat variants. I love these. We have the Delato Artist Spotlight variant, and then here is a Chris Samney variant. Really love Chris Samney's work. We have a 1 in 25 Bueno variant that we're selling for $15. And then we have a 1 in 50 Daniel Samper variant. That's basically, this is your A cover, but a virgin cover that we're selling for $25.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very excited for the all the stuff coming with Wonder Woman. It feels
Yeah,
like one of those things like I don't know where it's going, and that's exciting.
yeah. And the way these two books just sort of feed off each other is really
Hmm.
good. Like, really well done.
Cool. Next up for me, I've got a couple Star Wars books. To begin with, Star Wars Dark Droids D Squad #2. This one's really fun as R2 is trying to figure out a way to save C3PO from this scourge infection virus that's been spreading throughout all the droids. R2 goes in to get the help of Triple Zero, who is like C3PO, but a lot more murdery. That's kind of what their thing was. You've got Triple Zero, who decides to help R2 because his little droid, that's much like R2 BD, is um, also possessed by the Scourge thing. So they're going to work together to try and get rid of the Scourge out of the droids by any means necessary, and Triple Zero wants it to be as violent as possible. It's really fun. IG-88 shows up. Just a lot of fun droid stuff going on in this, and a great tie-in with all of the Dark Droid stuff that's going on. A little bit more lighthearted, but still in the same spirit. The other book we have is Dr. Aphra #37. It comes out this week, and that's just another Dark Droids tie-in. I think we've got two more issues in this. We see the return of some really fun characters to Aphra's life. We've got some variants for this as well. We've got the Riley variant with Chopper for D Squad. We've got the John Tyler Christopher variant here with Forlom. We've got this Dr. Aphra variant. This is 39 of 40. Only one more to
One
complete
more.
the Return of the Jedi there with the Force
What could be
Ghosts.
left? What could be the last one?
Uh, Fireworks or Ewoks
I
hitting
really hope it's Ewoks,
playing
playing that.
drums
Yeah,
on.
that's what it needs to be.
It's gonna be
That's the
credits. It's
best.
just all the
Right.
credits lined up. We also have this really cool Clone Wars 50th anniversary variant with Darth Maul with his not his spider legs, but the legs he gets after he has spider legs. And then we have a 1 in 25 Annie Wu variant for Dr. Aphra. We're selling for $20.
All right, so the other half of the Wonder Woman goodness is Amazon's attack #1. So in this one, at the very beginning of the book is when Queen Nubia sees the news report about the woman in Canada who blew up the gas station. And when I first read it, I was like, wow, that seems like probably something we should have seen
Yeah.
happen. And but we did see it in the back of a story that I just hadn't read yet. So but so because of that, that's an important event because of that, and Queen Nubia says, well, that's not an Amazon. She's a regular person. She's not an Amazon, but because she did it with the Wonder Woman symbol on, now
Help their cause in.
right now people think, oh, people are committing acts of violence in the name of Amazon, so that supports our ban on Amazons. And now, because that happened in Canada, now the Canadian government is considering a ban on Amazons, just like what the U.S. has. Um, so Queen Nubia receives an invitation to meet with the president of the United States in secret to try to salvage their relationship. And Nubia does go, but news about the meeting gets leaked pretty quickly. And wherever it is that they're meeting, there's like protesters all on the outside with all these signs and stuff. But while Nubia, she's being escorted to see the president by a couple of Secret Service agents, and just like the woman at the gas station in Canada, they just all of a sudden become possessed. Like their eyes turn yellow, and it looks like there was maybe some yellow smoke, I think. I'm not too sure, but they become possessed and they start attacking Nubia. Um, but Faruka shows up to help out, and then they run into Yara Flor as well. And I'm not up on all the current Wonder Woman stuff, but I think they are representative of like the three different tribes of Amazons.
Right.
So that's why they're all there. So now you have Nubia and Faruka and Yara Flor at this place where they were going to meet the president. But now it looks like, but they're defending themselves. But now it looks like they're being framed for attacking the president and his Secret Service, right? So it's a whole bunch of misunderstanding. But then Mary Marvel shows up too to help out. But the fight spills. Oops, sorry. The fight spills out onto the street. So now all the big crowd outside can see these Amazons and Mary Marvel fighting against Secret Service and things like that. So it goes from bad to worse for Amazons. Um, just further straining their relations. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know where you go from there. Like, I don't know how you come back from this, right? But that's what this series is going to be about. So, just they established this status quo in Wonder Woman #1, and now we're seeing how it's affecting other Amazons as well. So, very very cool. I like this one quite a bit. So we have our A cover right there. We have a couple of variants. We have our Mike Deodato Jr. variant with your four main players of this book here. And then you have this Taj Tenfold variant as well.
So read Wonder Woman first, and then
And then Amazon Attack. Yeah.
Which is funny because it wasn't the name of an old event. The Amazon's Attack was
Yeah, I believe so.
a big crossover event. Okay, next up, real quick, just going to talk about Predator versus Wolverine #2. This one's really fun. We get our present day drawn by Ken Lashley, where Wolverine is really like not looking good against the Predator. He's even with his healing factor, it looks really dicey. You know, he's the Predator's unrelenting against him, and so that's really fun to watch. But in the backup story, it takes place during the Team X story with Maverick and Wolverine and Sabretooth, and what's his name? Uh,
Oh, Maverick Saber 2. I don't remember.
yeah, there's a couple others
Yeah.
in there. But it's really cool to see them as this like tactical squad. This is pre Weapon
Are you
X.
talking about Kane? Like Garrison Kane?
It might be.
Yeah,
It might be
maybe.
him.
Was he one of?
So this takes place pre Weapon X. Wolverine has his bone claws, all of that, and because of what Team X is, their minds keep getting wiped over and
Oh,
over.
right. Yeah.
So Wolverine doesn't remember Predator, but Predator remembers
Yeah.
Wolverine. But Wolverine still has a little trinket from Predator that kind of he knows it's something that he can't remember, but he knows it's important. And they face off in the woods. Feels very Predator One. Some horrible things happen to some members of Team X, very much in Predator style. This is a very not for kids book when you've got two of the biggest hunters that both use claws
Yeah.
going out after each other. But at the end of this, we also do see a hint to where they face off next, and it looks really fun. So I can't wait for that one. But that is Predator versus Wolverine #2. And I didn't recognize a lot of the members of Team X, and there's a reason for that because they don't make it out.
Oh,
We also have this great Gary Frank variant.
that's nice. Brown suit Wolverine is the best Wolverine. Don't at me.
We also have a 1 in 25 Fernandez variant that we're selling for $20.
Very nice. All right, so next up for me is Captain America #2, the second issue of his brand new run. And this one is still putting the pieces into place for the larger story that's going to come. Like chess pieces are still getting put on the board. We see billionaire Travis Lane, who we saw last issue get possessed by this demon called Asmodee. He recruits more AIM scientists for something. We still don't know yet. Like I said, pieces are still getting put on the board. But we also, the first issue and this one too flashes back and forth between present day and when Steve Rogers was younger, like I think around like 16 years old. So we see him dealing with American Nazis in 1938. What was it? That was a real thing, American Bund, I think, something like that. So we see him dealing with all of that. And on the cover, you can see Spider-Man here, and the solicitation talks too about how Spider-Man interrupted Captain America's date with Sharon Carter to get some help with Sinister Six, and that does happen in this, but it didn't quite go the way I thought it would. So, if you'll have to read and find out exactly what happened. But just like I said, continuing setting the stage for what I'm sure is going to be something pretty explosive. I think there's going to be some ties between Steve Rogers' past and present day because they wouldn't be focusing on so much otherwise. But yeah, so more and more story to come. We have our A cover right there. We have a couple of variants. This is our George Perez variant, classic looking Captain America. And then we have this Jimenez. Is this one of the Avengers 60th anniversary variants? I
believe
think
so.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay, a book that I didn't realize came out this week until the last second.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to delay our show so I could read it. This is Miss Marvel, the New Mutant #3. And I'm glad I did, because this was a really good issue. So we left Kamala Khan. She is unconscious, uh, kind of dream walking, whatever you
Hmm.
want to call it. She's inside her own mind. And she's being watched over by her friend who's sitting in the room with her. But there's an attack going on her on a mental level, as Orcus has orchestrated something in Kamala's mind that's essentially like a mind bomb. And since Kamala is connected to like Emma Frost and a
Hmm.
lot of the surviving mutants that are on Earth that kind of all escape together, this could trigger
A
basically
chain
a chain
reaction.
reaction, the death of all of these characters. All Kamala has to do is open this door or kind of accept this Trojan horse, what they call it, and it's all be done with. And that Trojan horse plays off of Kamala's emotions. They said like, there's no way she's not going to trigger this because of what we're making. And I don't want to say what it is, but I will say it has to do with what Kamala's mutant abilities will be.
Hmm.
So that I feel like this is our biggest nod since the first issue to like, hey, she's gonna have mutant abilities as well. How does she feel about this? She's kind of taken on this dream quest by the character we've seen pop up throughout the series, Dr. Surfer, who we learned was actually a character that she invented
Right.
in her fan fiction. But that fan fiction may come in handy as she is touring this and has to come up against something that she may not know is a trap. So I thought this was a great issue. I feel like I have no idea what her mutant abilities is going to be, but I feel like there's a hint at the end of this what it could entail.
Okay.
And it's really fun. She may not be alone in her own mind. She may get back up. So
Hmm.
really fun issue of Miss Marvel, the New Mutant, and only one issue left. So that's pretty big. And we have this variant, which I love. This is the one I'm getting. This is the Terry and Rachel Dodson variant that is an homage to Kitty Pryde's first
Yeah.
appearance.
I think that's the one I pre-ordered. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. All right, so next up for me is the Flash #2. Like I said, everything I read was either a #1 or a
Yeah.
#2. So this is the second issue of Flash's new series. So in this one, Wally meets the Stillness, which is these guys right here. Don't really know who they are yet, though. They're like these weird, almost cosmic-like beings. So I guess more to come on those. But they do help him deal with the Uncoiled, which is like the big, like spiky monster that he ran into at the end of last issue. Um, and later on, with Mr. Terrific's help, Wally figures out where Grodd and all of his like army of gorillas are going to attack next. And while he's fighting though that group, he discovers that he maybe possesses a new power. Or I'm not sure if it's a new power within him or if it's something that he's got on his wrist. I'm not 100% sure yet. But it's very interesting. It's not speed though, is what he says. So
Hmm.
more to come on that. I guess we'll see how he uses it maybe the next issue or if it comes up again, that kind of thing. But yeah, if you like the first issue of the new Flash run, this is a direct continuation, so do not miss that one. Have a cover right there, and then we have some variants on this one. This is another Dolato Artist Spotlight variant. This is our Mike Diodato Jr. variant. And then we have a 1 in 25 Heron variant, which we're
That's
selling for,
cool.
yeah, I like that one. We're selling that one for $12.
I like James Harren.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, I've got Uncanny Avengers #3. So continues the story of Captain America's team, made up of mutants and Avengers, trying to work together to prove to the world that mutants are not a threat. They've just been kind of blackmailed by Orcus to seem that way. And what's nice in this one, Captain America uh, heads to the treehouse where got attacked by Captain Krakoa, and kind of the central part where people have really been like protesting against mutants. And Captain America stands there and makes a really nice speech about why he stands with the mutants and all of that. It's a very classic Captain America moment. The flag waving behind him,
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. The mutants are really appreciative of this act he does. And he also says there was a witness, a non mutant witness on Krakoa when the attack happened. to kind of prove their innocence. But even he doesn't know who that witness is. The mutants are keeping it really undercover to not, put this person's life on the line. But they do work out a way for this witness to meet with Ben Urich about,
Oh.
telling their story. And you have to see who
Hmm.
it is, but someone does walk through the door, and it may not be who you expect. So, really interesting issue of Uncanny Avengers. Plus, there's some stuff between Quicksilver and Monet St. Croix as they are trying to figure out who Captain Krakoa is. That might be love is in the air. So, a little bit of that. We also have these really nice. Let me hold them up in the correct way. These are the connecting Nick Bradshaw
Oh, those are great.
variants. So, love that one.
Yeah, those are great. All right, so next up for me is Uncanny Spider-Man. Here we go. Uncanny Spider-Man number 2. In this one, Orcus hires Silver Sable, or I'm sorry, Sable International, but Silver Sable's group
Yeah.
to help field test Rhino, who they have under some form of mind control, I think, and they're like field testing their capabilities to control him. So they try to use him to capture Nightcrawler, who is, running around in a Spider-Man costume. But so there's a big fight. There's a lot of action in this one. It's cool seeing Nightcrawler versus Rhino, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think we've ever seen that before. So a really cool fight in the park. Maybe things don't go the way that Orcus and Silver Sable want them to with Rhino. And Nightcrawler and Silver Sable have a very interesting interaction with each other in this. I won't tell you what it is, but something happened. I was like, oh, I never would have seen that coming in a million years. So just it's really fun. Nightcrawler continues to be really fun as a Spider-Man.
I liked how in the first issue too, it seems like in this one, like they're really like leaning into the Spider-Man aspect of it,
Yeah.
where he's facing off against Spider-Man villains rather
Yep.
than being really X-Men
Yep.
related.
And it continues in this. I mean, Rhino and Silver Sable. That's as Spider-Man as it gets.
Yep.
Yep. Nice A cover there, and then we have this really cool Rose Besh variant. Like that one.
Yeah, that one's cool.
And then a 1 in 10 Lee Garbett design variant. Lee Garbett's your interior artist, and there's his design for,
Which I think is phenomenal.
yeah, Spider-Man Nightcrawler. They got to come up with a name. Like, he should stay this way. It could be like, Night Spider or something like that. Oh, I
Yeah.
think that's taken by like Cat Spider-Man on another Earth. I don't remember. There's too many.
Spider Crawler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super cool, and I do hope he stays around in that suit for a while. I'd
Yeah.
love to see him pop up and amazing and stuff
Yeah.
here and there. Maybe even in Spider Boy. Who knows?
Maybe.
Okay, next up for me, one that I wish I got to read, but I did not get a chance to read because there was so much to read. But I did want to mention because it's one of the best books to come out. Conan the Barbarian. This is issue number. I want to make sure I get it right. 4, and this is the end of your first story arc.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So end of your first story arc. I think that's really nice. It's 4. It's told its story. It's done. And I'm looking forward to what is coming next. I know a little bit of what's coming next because I know people who work on it, and it's going to be great. So definitely, if you're not reading Conan, get on it. We've got some variants for it as well. We've got this Machismo variant. We have this one, which I love. This is the Carrie Nord kind of homage variant or whatever, but definitely looks like a classic Conan
Yeah,
issue.
I love that.
And Carrie Nord worked on Conan for a long time. And we have this black and white version of the De La Torre 8 cover.
That's cool. I love that book. All right, so the last one for me is Batman, Catwoman, the Gotham War, Red Hood, number 2. So this is the second of the 2-part Red Hood kind of sort of tie into the Gotham War storyline. This is the next to last anything Gotham War that's going to come out. Not really an official part of the Gotham War because it's more of a side quest kind of thing. But yeah, we got one more Gotham War to go. So in this book, it's interesting the way this one works because this initially takes place a week before, I guess, the current events of the Gotham War, because we see Red Hood is still up. He's still on his search for Scarecrow because Scarecrow killed one of Catwoman's henchmen that he was training last issue. So he's looking for Scarecrow, and he enlists the help of another character that I was very surprised to see. That I didn't know that he and this other character had this type of camaraderie relationship kind of thing. So I won't tell you who, but that was really interesting. But before he can find Scarecrow, Batman does what he did to Red Hood in I think it was either Batman 138 or Catwoman 58. I don't remember which one. So this book actually sort of takes place in two parts, like pre what Batman did and then post what Batman did.
Interesting.
So the back half of the book is like present day Gotham War stuff, where maybe Jason Hood isn't really himself right now.
Jason Hood.
Jason, did I say that? Jason Todd Red Hood. So maybe he's not quite himself at the end of this one. But the Joker is involved in this too, and I wanted to go ahead and mention that because at the end of this said to be continued in Batman, Catwoman, the Gotham War, Scorched Earth, which is like the last part of this
Yeah.
whole storyline, as well as Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing, number 12, which I think is the end of that story, right? So there's gonna be, if you're wanting to get like all of this Red Hood, Gotham War stuff, maybe check out Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing, the last issue of that because we know that Joker's going to be popping up in Batman for a new
Yeah.
story arc called
Feels like they're
Mindbomb.
funneling all of his story into one so
Yeah.
that he can move on to that.
Yeah, exactly. So, don't miss out on that if you've been enjoying what's going on with Red Hood and Gotham War. Maybe check that out. There might be a little bit more there. So we have our A cover right here. Oh, and the art in this was really, really good too. I really like this art, but I didn't write down Cismesia, I believe, is the artist name. So yeah, A cover right there. This is our Dustin Nguyen variant. And then we have a 1 in 25 Raleigh Rossmo variant.
Sick.
We're selling for $12. Yeah, Rossmo, I like that a lot.
I like those
Really
colors
cool.
too.
Yeah, very much.
Okay, lastly for me, I've got Power Girl number 2. Check out that awesome Gary Frank A cover on there. This continues the story of Power Girl trying to figure out this mysterious Kryptonian virus that's spreading, but it's linked to her version of Krypton, her Earth that she escaped, ended up in this Earth. So it feels like it's very attached to her. She's having to deal with that, but also she's a writer at the Daily Planet, and she has to deal with Lois Lane as a boss.
Oh, that's great. That sounds fun.
Because Lois Lane the whole time knows that she's Power Girl, but it's also like, right, your paper's due in the morning.
Yep.
So
she's like that with Clark too, though.
yeah,
So
it's like I know
fun.
you have really big responsibility,
Yeah.
but you also have a job. So that part's really fun in this. There's also just some fun stuff with I believe is Omen, her roommate.
Right.
That's really fun, especially because they still have Streaky the cat, and Streaky the cat is a jerk. At one point, Streaky the cat sits on Power Girl's cupcake just to be mean.
Oh.
Really fun stuff, but also all the while she's investigating this, she is being hunted by someone else. You kind of know who it is. You see him right there on the cover. He definitely the space pirate that's introduced in the first issue has something really against Kryptonians, and he even tells Power Girl like, "You should know why," and she's like, "I really
don't.
I don't know why." But building a really interesting story, and I've really enjoyed it so far. So, issue 2 of that out this week. We also have some variants. We have this Lee variant that's really cool. It's kind of very classic what Superman does, where he floats above the planet. We've got this, I believe this is, yes, the Lyrics Lee variant. Some of your characters there. Love Supergirl up there. Feels like the new Supergirl 1.2 might tie into this a little bit. And we have this 125 Lopez Ortiz variant. We're selling for $12, which is super cool anime style.
Yeah, I like that.
So very, very cool one there. We're selling for that for $12. You got anything else?
I'm done. That's it.
That was a big show. A lot of really big, good books coming out this week that you don't want to miss. So head on over to infinityflux.net or infinityflux.it's here. It's a store.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're local, we always talk about the website, but if you're local or within driving distance, come and see us. We're here all the time. We never leave.
Even if you're not in driving distance, drive here anyway because it's worth it.
Drive.
Yeah.
Across the ocean.
That's right. Like a flight.
Definitely come see us, but if you can't, head over to infinityflux.net. Pre-order your books there. Order the ones that are there. So much fun stuff. And like we said, everything you pre-order, you get 10% off of. You can't beat that deal. unless it was free, and we would not be in business if that was the case. So, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for a show coming up on Monday. Oh, no, Wednesday, because today is
Today is
actually
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
Wednesday, we'll be going over some of the books that you can pre-order that week. You don't want to miss that. And like and subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff. We really appreciate it, and just help us reach more people with the good news about comics. So, be good to each other, all of that fun stuff. And until next time, see ya.